Come on in, sit back, relax, and listen to episode 161 of the WealthTech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. And this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. Our topic for this month is navigating new markets, where we speak to wealth tech executives on how they made the move into a new market or a new client segment, such as moving from the RIA market to broker-dealers or vice versa. We chose this topic because at Ezra Group, we work with a lot of wealth tech vendors who are entering new markets and need our advice and guidance to help them be successful. I was excited to speak to today's guest, Ryan George, Chief Marketing Officer for Docupace. Ryan has spent his entire 15-year career in the financial services industry, working with stakeholders from across the advice landscape. Ryan joined Docupace in September 2020 from First Global, where he was Vice President of Marketing and Communications. Now, First Global is a wealth management provider to CPA firms. And during his tenure there, Ryan spearheaded the company's lead gen efforts, boosted its brand among key stakeholders, and contributed to double-digit revenue growth. Ryan is also a finalist, or was also a finalist, for WealthManagement.com's Broker-Dealer Chief Marketing Officer of the Year Award in 2019. He is a Forbes Communications Council member and was chair of the Financial Services Institute Marketing, Growth, and Development Council. Super excited for you to hear this interview with Ryan George. But before that, if your company has a software product that you're selling to RIAs, broker-dealers, asset managers, or other firms, and you're looking to change markets or just expand your existing market, go to our website, EzraGroupLLC.com, and fill out the Contact Us form. Our wealth tech research team can deliver a wide range of market insights for you, including competitive analysis, addressable and obtainable market estimates, sales targeting, and insights on buying decisions, and more. Every wealth tech vendor needs this kind of data to be successful, especially when entering new markets. And you can start the process of getting going by going to EzraGroupLLC.com. And before I press play on this interview, please subscribe to this show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. All right, now let's kick this thing off. I'm excited to introduce our next guest on the program. It is Ryan George, Chief Marketing Officer for Docupace. Ryan, welcome, man.
Hi, Craig. Hey, thank you for having me over today.
I'm glad I could fit into your schedule. You've been all over the place. You're just back in the office the first time.
I've been bouncing from coast to coast. It's been tiring, but it's been great to see friends from all different firms and different fintechs as well.
And you just came back from Future Proof. How was that, man?
I do. The tan shows that I've been outside in the sunny skies of Huntington Beach, but Future Proof was great. It was, the first time they've run that event. They did some things differently that I think really helped get engagement from the audience. And, we were really excited to be a part of it this year. We'll continue to be a part of it for years to come.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Wasn't feeling too well, but I'm glad they went off without a hitch, and it's all the good social media from that conference. It was definitely good to see people trying something different.
Yes, right, sir.
So speaking of something different, we are going to try something different here. Our topic for this podcast, or this episode rather, is moving markets, changing client segments, what it's like, tips and best practices around changing markets or moving into different markets, as Docupace has recently done. And so we're going to talk about that and how you guys expanded from the broker-dealer space into the RA space. And full disclosure, Ezra Group helped you guys do it. We were happy to do that. We're working with you as a client. So we're going to talk a bit about some of the reasons, some of the things that help you, best practices, tips and tricks, and insights. So let's start off the first one with the challenges. Can we talk about some of the challenges you ran into moving into a new market?
Sure. I think, moving into a market for Docupace was a big project that we wanted to make sure we were doing right. So Docupace is a 20-year-old fintech. So we offer back office technology. We do back office. We take everything from opening an account to processing paperwork, forms to moving that into the custodian and taking that information from the CRM. That's a big part of connecting that tech stack together is what Docupace does. And we have historically worked within the IBD space. So we worked with the advisor groups, the Ceteras, the Avantaxes, the larger IBDs. And what we noticed a couple of years ago was, hey, we really think we can add some value to the RA space. And so the challenges there were, what do we do today that is valid? So identifying sort of, how can we make what we do more, enticing to that marketplace, but also how do we communicate it when they may see us, having the history that we have, they may see us as, X when we really are could be Y to them. So that would be the first challenge, is how do we message or enter the space?
Yeah, there's so much around that, and understanding your value in your other markets, and then how you convert that value to the new market. But I think one of the areas that you had mentioned to me that was a huge benefit or a huge value was never assume you know the new market as well as you do, right? So you really need to understand you don't know everything.
Right, you don't know everything, and I think that that's something that we, when you have a long time working in a market, I think, especially within like sort of the independent broker dealer space, a lot of those people are duly registered advisors. They have their own RAs, so you think you know that market, but sometimes they process a little bit differently. And what we really identified was, okay, where is the complexity in their business, and where can we attack that and help them overcome that challenge? And I think that's something that we dove into, because it's not just naming conventions, it's not just commissions versus advisory payouts or advisory fees. It's more about sort of what's a centralized office versus a home office, sort of how does who does the work inside an RIA versus who does the work inside of IBD. And I think identifying those things and then figuring out how you can map your solutions or map your capabilities to solve those challenges, I think is a good exercise to start. But it really starts by asking questions about sort of how do these different types of firms, while they're in the same space, offer a similar type of value set, but may operate much differently.
And another best practice is, besides not assuming, is getting a third party to help validate what assumptions you do have. And what you guys did is came to Ezra Group as the third party.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think Ezra Group really came in handy on, is helping challenge our assumptions that we may have about the marketplace. Really giving a good competitive intelligence set as far as who may be serving that marketplace today and what they are offering and what some of our opportunity sets may be. And I think that's a big benefit, because you need to understand, who are you competing against? Because often you're competing against when you're in a new market, you're competing against a different competitive set than you may be competing with today. And I think with Ezra Group, I think one of the things that they really did is help us get our own house in order, and sort of having them ask the questions, well, why are you entering this market? How are you trying to enter this market? And getting our teams aligned, where we may have thought people were more aligned than they were. But once a question is asked or something, you get 2 or 3 different answers, and sort of having Ezra Group sort of be that third party, that sounding board, and really pointing out sort of where discrepancies may be or where gaps may be and what the offering set is I think was critical path for us in terms of developing a right solution.
And that is so common with clients you work with. It's not just Docupace. Everyone does the same thing. When you ask a group of executives, why are you doing this? Whether it's moving to a new market, launching a new product, whatever it is, you wind up getting 4 different answers. There's just 4 people in the room. And that's part of the value of asking these questions and getting everyone on the same page.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like most companies, there are a lot of opinions. Some of them are backed up by facts. Some of them are just backed up by emotion. So really sort of putting that second camp to the side and really going to the facts of, this is the experience I have in the marketplace. This has been what I have seen in the marketplace, and here's where it is. Can you respond to that? At least tell me, validate that fact for us. I think is important. But it is also just good to have a third party opinion. We often can sort of not only drink our own Kool-Aid, but maybe drink a little bit too much of our own Kool-Aid in terms of not understanding what our product could do and how that's communicated to the marketplace. I think is important. And then also, I think working with a third party like the Ezra Group is really important to see, how does the market see us? So we may see us a certain way, but having them sort of decipher how the market sees us and how we need to maybe message around that or attack that message, I think is an important part of that process as well.
That is a benefit of bringing in a third party who's objective to say, hey, how do people see us? Because you might see how your clients see you, or how you think they saw you. But again, you guys have had so much success in the market over a long period. The people who may have first purchased your product aren't the same people who are at the company now and may see the way your product works differently or see your value differently.
And you know, it's interesting when you bring in a third party. There's that sometimes you'll have a company reject that, right? So they'll reject the third party opinion coming in saying, well, we already know this. What do we need them for? And so sometimes you have to battle a little bit to say, okay, open your mind, open what your thought can be, and listen to that kernel of what they're saying that is different than what you may think. And I think that takes time. It takes some people sort of approaching with the right attitude. And that's something that I would say, looking at the start of a project, I'd recommend somebody really understanding and communicating, why are we bringing in a third party? What role they're trying to play? Because the third party, like Ezra Group and like you, Craig, are going to challenge a lot of the stuff that we think to be true. It's not because you don't agree, but you're challenging it to make sure that it's sort of steadfast in our approach. And it really is something that's entrenched in what we're trying to do. And I think that that's something that people may not always see when bringing in third parties, that they just want them to tell them yes to everything they say. And that's really not a valuable, I mean, that's a paid yes man or yes woman, and that's probably not going to get the most value for the firm.
One of our favorite expressions is, we get paid to tell you your baby's ugly.
Yeah. Luckily, our baby wasn't too ugly, but yes, I get what you're saying. Yes.
You had a nice baby, right? But we do tell other companies when their baby is ugly, and sometimes it's the first time they've heard that. So that it is a bit disconcerting. Especially
when people, with technology, and I've found this, I spent my career in the broker-dealer space, in the mutual fund space, moved over to the fintech space about 2 years ago. And what I found is these people, their blood, sweat, and tears are into these products. They have worked a long time building them, and they're very closely held to the vest, held to the heart. And I think sometimes they don't want to hear or that it may not function as they hoped it would. And I think that that's something that, it's part of the business in nature and sort of how you communicate within the tech space.
Cool. So the next challenge that I want to bring up is avoiding moving too fast. Can you talk about why that's important? Don't you want to move fast? Isn't move fast and break things? Why would you avoid moving too fast?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as a marketer, you sort of look at, there's sort of two scenarios. One is the first mover advantage is going to give you a huge advantage on the marketplace, meaning if all I have to do is say this first, and it's going to, enter the market first and open my door, everything's going to come my way. Or you're sort of the right mover advantage, which is when I enter the market, it's going to be entered the right way, and people are going to see it as an optimal solution. I think what happens a lot with people trying to be first is they sort of announce something that they believe they have, but they don't, or they want to have, but they don't. So you'll see it a lot in technology announcements. They'll make an announcement and say, hey, we have this new platform, it does X, Y, Z, and they haven't actually built it. They're just saying it's built, and they're waiting for a customer to come pay for them to build it. And I think that sometimes can lead to a bad connotation, false starts in product development, and all sorts of sort of negative effects towards revenue, negative effects towards growth. So I think that's why maybe moving too fast isn't the right thing. I think within the RIA space, it's really interesting because it's a very disaggregated market. There's 30,000 plus RIAs in this country. But so there isn't one shot to get inside the RIA market. They do talk, and so there is a grapevine among those RIAs where there's you can communicate quite frequently. So I think being careful how you approach it. So when somebody says, oh, well, we tried them and they completely lied to our face, so they completely oversold what they could do, that's what we want to stop, but that's what we want to prevent from happening. So that's why moving too fast can actually, it could cause some, internally, you're going to get that. Internally, you have a sales team who wants to move fast. That's their job. I appreciate that. Sometimes it's not always fun to tap the brakes, but I think if you really have one chance to sort of open the door, show up to the party, and become the starlight, I think, you really want to be, you do it the right way.
Announcing a product that doesn't exist. We used to call that freezing the market.
Freezing the market, yeah. And it happens more. I see probably at least one announcement of every week or two where like that product doesn't exist. They're hoping it exists. It's in ideation, and maybe they have a BRD for it, but it isn't built. It isn't functioning. Isn't in use today.
I was just I just dropped in a podcast today from John Rajesh from LPL Financial, who's in charge of their technology partnerships. And I asked him, what's the biggest problem you have with vendors? And he said, vaporware was the number one problem, right? Companies saying they got something and they just don't have it. So it's becoming almost an epidemic.
Yeah, I think at Docupace, our sales approach has been, I can't speak for how it's been the entire 20 years of the company, but I think at least the past couple of years, we've tried to really narrow the gap between how things are demoed, how things are sold, and how they're delivered to make sure they're in a narrow set. And I think while some things in implementation don't always maybe take a little longer to implement or may be a little bumpier, I do feel confident in the way that we're positioning ourselves within the marketplace, because I do think there's that gap between I sometimes feel like sales can sell a dream state, and then implementation sort of provides a real state, and there's a huge gap there. And in the end, nobody really wins. They might get the sale, but it might not be a long-term client. The delivery team gets frustrated, the client gets frustrated, and I think it's something that's it's not just fintech; it's all over the place. And I think if we're protected of what Docupace is and the people who are doing the work behind the scenes, we want to make sure that we sort of keep that again in the narrow band as possible.
At Ezra Group, we tell our broker-dealer, asset manager, RA clients, don't believe the hype from vendors.
Yeah.
Right. They're
Yeah,
going to
I was just so speaking of, when I was at the event, I won't say which event or who was speaking, but there were a number of people who were demoing technology, and every single one was the most, transformational, revolutionary. It's going to change everything you do technology. And while, I'm glad they're that proud of what they're building, and I'm glad they have that passion behind it, it's also probably not reality of what it's delivering. So technology, this is going to improve your day. It's not going to revolutionize your day, or it's going to, give you more scale than you have, but it's also not going to revolutionize your business. That's just not the way it works, because there's still going to be humans involved. And when humans are involved, the needle moves a little bit more slowly than I think technology sales and marketing and messaging want to believe.
One of my pet peeves is press releases that say the leading provider of X. But every press release says the leading provider of X. Everyone can't be the leading provider of X. You've only been in business for 2 years. You can't be the leading provider of X.
They're leading in something, and maybe leading in X, maybe 2 other letters, but yeah, exactly.
But also, as I was saying, we tell our clients don't believe the hype. Also, our fintech clients, we work with a lot of fintech clients, just like Docupace. You shouldn't believe the hype either from your competitors, because they're most likely blowing smoke up their clients' ass.
Yeah, and I think so. Docupace being in the back office space and operations, we are down in the muck, right? So we are like the grease inside the engine, and we've been doing this for 20 years, so we have a lot of long-term tenured product people who've been building and delivering these things for a very long time. And, they know what I know, which is this is difficult. And when people show up and sort of try to make it easy, we know that there's something behind it with those words that they're saying, because it's not easy. This isn't, just at the Future Proof event I was just at, every single person that came up to said, the new client onboarding, man, I hate the way we onboard new clients. And it's like, they say the reason they hate it is because they know it should be easier. They know it's hard, and they're trying to figure out a way that we can help them. And that's sort of, that's what Docupace has tried to step into. But I know our business isn't easy. It's never has been easy, and likely will never will be, just because of the nature of what it takes to to deliver a good experience when opening a client or starting a new relationship.
All right, next challenge when it comes to changing client segments. You can't do everything alone. What is it about that is a problem? How do you avoid that pitfall?
Sure. I think, when entering a new market, there's a couple of things that I think are both internally and externally. So we talked about bringing in a consultant like Ezra Group or somebody with some third-party perspective. I think the other key part is also integration partners. So who can you partner with that may already be in that market that can help sort of bring you into clients and sets that already have? So Docupace has been able to leverage a strong partner network within the enterprise software space that may already be serving the RAs. And we worked with that to sort of figure out how we can deepen integrations. We recently announced an integration with InvestNet on advisory accounts, sort of deepen our integration there. And there's others that are coming with that, coming behind that. But we know that no technology stands alone in terms of how it delivers, especially specifically to the RA space. So we want to make sure that you can connect visibility as well. Also, I think who you bring on your project team internally, making sure you have visibility to product, to the product team, to the sales team, to other management. And I think one of the things that was not a false start, but one of the things I had to reset internally for myself was making sure I maybe went down a level in terms of the level of hierarchy to the people who actually be doing the work to help build this product instead of sort of the bosses. I think the bosses sort of have a viewpoint, but then they have a valid viewpoint, but they're not the ones who actually have their hands in and know exactly where the hiccup here is or what the opportunity here is. So I think that's where finding the right project team to really roll their sleeves up and build a solution for the marketplace is probably one of the most critical decisions for us.
It reminds me of a tip from Jim Collins, Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus. Whether they're senior people or junior people or whatever people you need in your organization, you need the right people to make things successful.
Yeah, and I think that's, while it sounds like a sort of a general guidance, I think it does actually general guidance that really you'll really only get to the right team if you really start asking the tough questions, because sometimes it's not even you. Sometimes it's you stepping, like for instance, myself, stepping out of conversations that I didn't need to be there for a month or two. So the right people could work on those things with the consultants, could work on, building the right materials where I wasn't adding any value. And I think, again, that's all about sort of making sure the right people are working on the right piece of the project at the right time.
It's all what it's about. Another thing we spoke about was another area we recommend a lot for clients is internal marketing, internal communications plan. Everyone's good at external communications, or they're better, but they don't think about internal communications, letting people know what's going on rather than just rumors or just partial information, giving them a heads up as to what's happening so that they're prepared or they don't their expectations don't get out of hand.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's one of the things. If I could go back and do the project a little bit differently, I think I would handle that a little bit differently. I think trying to find the right level of information to keep people, to bring them along the project as we go. But I think because we're now sort of we're at the sort of launch point at the end of the road, I'm having to spend more time catching them up, bringing them up to speed, and sort of identifying gaps in messaging or gaps in marketing that may existed simply because I just didn't communicate broadly enough as well. Because I think when you have a big project like for entering a new market, you're going to get a lot of interest internally, and if you let people in too early, they're going to get distracted from their day jobs, and it's something they should really worry about 6 months from now, not today. But the more they know about it, the more they're going to be interested in it. So trying to find the right sort of way to update them, I think, is something important. I think I learned some right ways and wrong ways to do it. I think I would try to be more transparent as far as what the progress is and what the timeline is, because one of the timelines is probably the thing that's changing the most. So target hasn't changed. What we're trying to deliver hasn't changed. What sort of how we're messaging hasn't changed, but sort of when things are ready and sort of what we're doing has definitely changed. And I think that's something that trying to communicate more broadly, even down throughout the organization. So don't think just management. If you really want to take control of the messaging, making sure that all the employees understand why this is big for us and sort of what the plan is and how we're going to attack it. And more importantly, what we need from them in order to be successful.
Yeah, but getting the right people on the bus also means letting them know what's happening rather than just saying, look, it's coming soon, don't worry. Let them know, here's where it's happening, here's where we're going. Maybe we had a setback, here's a setback, so that they understand the realities of things. And then letting them know, well, here's how you're going to participate, or it's not going to really affect you. That way they're aware of what's going on.
Yeah, so if you, some firsthand experience, if you create a 100-slide deck that has a full, deep explanation, don't assume that everybody's going to read and dive into the 100-slide deck. Create a 100-slide deck, but also turn that into a 50-slide shorter version, and then a 10-slide even shorter version for the different people who may have different levels of interest in the project.
You sound like a good consultant, Ryan. That's what
it might be in my future.
Well, call me when you're ready for that. All right. So another of the areas. So the last comment we have here in terms of moving into new client segments for a vendor is understanding your value. So what value did you derive? Oh, so it's more, so when you're bringing a third party, sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Bringing in a third party like Ezra Group to help you, what value did you derive from working with us, and what would you recommend to other fintechs when they're working with consultants or other people that are helping them in their marketing or their planning, product planning for new markets?
Yeah, yes, I think the two biggest things is one, understanding the competitive landscape. I think when you look at a competitor, you are going to look at them through some rose-colored glasses of your own, right? So we're better than them for X, we're better than for Y. But what the consultant can do is really say, it doesn't matter what they are delivering, it matters what the market believes they're delivering, and that's what you can be measured up against, right? So there is a difference, often there's a delta there. When you say, oh, well, we're better than X at doing Y, but the market believes that they are better at X doing Y, that's something that you need to understand and be able to build around, or at least message yourself around. So I think that's something that a third party like Ezra Group is really helpful with, because we don't spend as much time on our competitors, or at least looking at the sort of overall landscape that a consultant would be. And then on the third side is really making sure to ask the tough questions. So making sure that they can ask questions, say, well, do you really believe that? And sort of finding the deltas in what people say. So if they ask three people a question and three people give answers that are somewhat dissimilar for each other, sort of helping arbitrage those to make sure that they understand, hey, this is where your gaps in these questions, we need to get these people on the same page. So I think that's a huge benefit from a third party.
One of my favorite phrases around this is perception is reality. What clients perceive is their reality. You may have a much better product. You may have much better technology, but if the perception in the market is the opposite, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think something that's hard to internalize, especially when you hold something close to your vest, in terms of you really care about a product, and you're passionate about it. You want to say, well, you scream, well, we do this better than them, but it doesn't. I want to say sometimes it doesn't really matter, because that's not what the market perceives. And so trying to find the way between those two is important, specifically when you're introducing a new capability that's not something that you have done before. Or, we all have, again, 20-year-old fintech, we have a sort of a reputation that may precede us, supplanting that reputation and introducing exactly what we can do takes a lot of work, and also takes a lot of unified messaging that needs to be, developed and delivered.
Exactly. It's having better technology and the market not knowing about it is a long-term marketing strategy. You need to let people know, get the message out there that you have better technology, and here's why, if that's even important. Sometimes the specific technology you have isn't as important as the client experience, the workflow, the configuration, the price, the integration capabilities. And every client is different. Some clients may say, well, we only care about your technology. That's the most important part. Others may say, well, we're more concerned about how well you integrate with the other tools we have. And other ones might say, well, you only care about your user experience. So it's different for each client.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, because I think when entering a new market, you need everybody behind it, right? So think of the Pied Piper, and with the parade behind everybody following the Pied Piper down the street. The fallacy sort of in that story is how long it takes the Pied Piper to get everybody behind them, right? So it's not easy to get that chorus behind, following in line. I think that's the part that, when I say move, be careful moving too fast, that's something that can happen where you go too fast and people are delivering it in a different way. They're going after different targets, or, worse yet, they may share to themselves, I don't really believe in what we're doing here. And that gets out to the marketplace, and that there's dissension there. And it's not because they don't believe in what that the company can add value to a specific target set. It's that they just don't understand why they're going after them. And I think that that's something to combat as well.
Indeed. And I wanted to touch on another area for internal information and internal communication. Docupace has done a number of M&A deals this year. How do you internally communicate those? This isn't necessarily on the topic, but you talk about internal communication. What's some of the some tips or some advice you'd give about internal communications for upcoming M&A deals?
Yeah, I mean, those could be a huge challenge. I think those I like to think those maybe like layers of the onion, right? So internally, so to our CEO David Knock and our board, which involves our president and founder Michael Pensker and other members from FTV Capital. They really are sort of the tip of the spear in terms of M&A conversations. They'll go through any handful of conversations with the company before anybody else has ever brought it. And I think they're sort of have a discussion before, like, hey, well, let's explore this. And so when that may happen, then there's a broader set of executives or product team or due diligence teams that come in to make sure that everything that, kick the tires, look under the hood, kick over the rocks that's possible. The challenge in that is if a lot of times these M&A deals don't go through. There's 1,000 reasons why. Sometimes, it's something that we could walk away. It's something that the other group could walk away. A third party could come in. I mean, those are just two examples of what can happen, 2 or 3 examples. So you don't want somebody to get excited about it because it becomes a distraction from their day job. And I think anytime you're introducing something new or a company is about to sort of go in a different direction or launch something, the sequence in which you let people in is always going to be a real challenge because everybody is going to want to know the most amount of information available at the earliest amount of time. And so there you have that dynamic tension between I want the information and I want it now, but they may not need it now. A, because it may not happen, and B, it doesn't really affect them until a later date. And so I think trying to keep that close to the vest, and then there's the big sort of not something that is necessarily a concern at Docupace, but then there's also letting it get out, right? Because the more people who know, the more likely that information can get leaked, even accidentally, because you never know who knows what. So that's something that we have to keep very close to the vest. Our CEO David does a really good job of bringing people in as the appropriate time frame. And I think, while we may be close and I may want that information, I do know that, just because I want something doesn't mean I need to know it at the time. And I feel confident that I'll get brought in at the appropriate time.
And Ryan, we are out of time. You've said it all. Can you tell everyone listening where they can find more information about Docupace?
Sure. We have lots of fun content at www.docupace.com. We have a monthly newsletter. It's not a sales pitch. It's all about market research. It's some cool piece of research from third parties that I find that I find throughout the internet through, from the Schwabs and Fidelities and such. But go to docupace.com. You can look under resources and you'll find blogs, downloads, all the sorts of fun stuff that we have out there.
Ryan, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's Craig again. Here are my top 3 takeaways from this episode. Number 1, don't assume you understand the new market you're going to. It's always more complicated than you think. I can tell you from experience, working with many, many vendors who are moving into new markets, new client segments, they just really don't know what they don't know, which is one reason why they come to us. You have to test your product, you have to get third-party validation, and basically get your own house in order before you go there and know why you're doing it, why you're going to this market, and understand all the pitfalls and things you need to watch out for, which is a great reason why you should contact Ezra Group. Number 2, avoid moving too fast until you're ready. That was a great point that Ryan made. Take the time to build the right solution. This is something we helped Docupace with. We really spent a lot of time with their product team going through what was the right solution. Don't just throw something out the door. If you're a startup, you want to do an MVP, sure, you throw something out the door, see what sticks. But if you're an existing company, you don't want to put out something that is less than your normal quality. It's going to look bad for your company. And as Ryan said, you only get one shot at making a first impression. Third takeaway, you can't do everything alone. Get the right people involved, as Ryan said, or get the right people on the bus, as the famous book said. Make sure you push information out internally, show your progress, let everyone know what's happening. Don't just say it's coming soon. Find the right balance between informing everyone and distracting them from their day-to-day tasks. So that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the WealthTech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. Please go to our website, EzraGroupLLC.com. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, analysis, information, links. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening. Talk to you all again next time.